this is a structured review for evaluating the reliability and relevance criteria for real-world data that's intended for regulatory purposes. And so this has been developed again with the FDA guidance documents as the basis, and then the shared NEST stakeholder experiences and expertise. I do want to note that this initiative is evolving with our stakeholders, and we're currently piloting this process in what we call implementation cases. And those cases are projects that we're working closely with manufacturers, research partners, and FDA. And I'll describe this a little bit more in a little more detail later. And so the reason we developed the NEST review is that we know manufacturers already use the FDA guidance documents for their studies. However, through the NEST experiences and in discussions with our stakeholders, we really heard a need for predictability and consistency in using real-world evidence for regulatory submissions. So, and to address those challenges that some of those challenges that were on that first slide. So, this data mark approach really helps to evaluate some of that key data quality elements in a structured fashion, and it aims to help reduce some of that uncertainty associated with using real-world data for regulatory filings. So we've worked with experts in the field of RWE, our own experience with test and implementation cases over the past few years, and with experts have developed some detailed tools or questionnaires to really look into and gather information about those key data elements for reliability on the data NEST mark side. And then as well, we have review instructions. So for someone who's reviewing those tools and questionnaires, there's some detailed instructions on how to do that. And again, these are rooted in the guidance documents, our frameworks, and then experience with our collaborations with FDA. They're also really reflective of the evolution at NEST. So I mentioned in 2016 when we were founded and under the first MDUFA 4 funding cycle, there were 21 NEST test cases that were conducted, and there were 2 objectives on those. And those were really to explore the feasibility of working with real-world data in our initial set of network collaborators, and also to identify some areas that NEST could play a role. And those are summarized in a peer-reviewed publication that came out late last year. So actually, it was about a year ago in August of 2024 in the Journal of Comparative Effectiveness Research. So if you're interested in learning more about those test cases and some of the lessons from those, you can find that peer-reviewed publication, and also on our website. There's some videos and other information about those. And then we've been working through these, what we call implementation cases. And so we have had 2 submissions so far. And as we were developing this process earlier on, it was built on experience with 1 clearance and 1 approval. And we've got 4 ongoing projects. So those are really helping to inform this NEST mark process that we've been working through. And of course, then our expertise. This provider mark is designed to be agnostic to a research question. So we can take some of the quality aspects of data in a study agnostic way, and then learn about data quality early on for either a project or as a head start for other projects that can be used later for that data source. So the idea here is that we're really looking at certain aspects of quality. And then once that's evaluated, the idea is that those parts may not need to be evaluated again unless things change, and then over time may be updated. But this evaluation ultimately leads to what we call a NEST mark review report, and data vendors can use that as part of their marketing and evidence of data quality and discussions with manufacturers, and then it can also be included as part of a regulatory submission. So that documentation that I mentioned early on about data quality. So I'll just pause there in case, if you want to have any questions or want to talk through any of this.
And that's actually a question, I had with the NEST data mark. Is it project specific? Is it data partner specific? And I understand, I think we understand that relevance, right, is something that is going to have to be assessed for each study. It's very study specific. It sounds like, if I'm not mistaken, data reliability you know, for the most part, once a source of data is chosen, then that is less study specific, more study agnostic. Um, but will every project have a data mark review?
So currently in our implementation projects, we are intending to do a data mark review for those projects. But to your question of that balance between what can be looked at separate from a study and then the aspects that need to be looked at that would be part of a study, so that relevancy piece of the reliability and relevance, that's one area that we've been working really hard to distinguish. And what we're doing with the data provider mark is really looking at things such as data accuracy, provenance, governance, ETL, patient privacy. So all those things that you can look at in a data source that would be agnostic to the regulatory objective or the research question. And so really getting a head start for projects, and then that information can additionally be reused for other projects. But recognizing what you said on the relevance side, that's really where we dig further into a study design evaluation. And we've been working on that with our implementation projects. But as we know, every project is unique. Every project is going to have different aspects of the design evaluation that will need to be considered depending on all sorts of mainly the regulatory objectives. So there, we do have a tool to walk through some of the evaluation, again, based on the relevance criteria from the FDA guidance documents, but also recognizing that once we have a project, we will need to revisit aspects of that data source evaluation that may be specific. So things like continuity of care, longitudinality, timeliness, and representativeness. Some of that can be looked at up front, but once we have a study question, of course, we're going to have to go back and really look at that in the context of what the regulatory objective is. So we
Right.
are working through that as well. So more of both the reliability aspects and then the relevance aspects.